NeuroAge test can tell you how old your brain is and your future risk of Alzheimer's more than 30 years ahead of time. It combines brain MRI. So we send people to go get MRIs without any contrast somewhere near them, plus cognitive testing. So that takes 30 minutes and you complete it online using our software. We test your reaction time and your memory. And then the third piece is blood biomarkers, which can test the hallmarks of brain aging. So we can test inflammation and DNA damage in your brain from a set of 52 RNA transcripts in the blood. Mm-hmm. And we combine those into a single score that gives you a brain age. Having all of the pieces is more accurate than having any one of the pieces, but you can do, a single piece as well. And then we offer people personalized recommendations to slow down or reverse their brain aging based on their biomarkers. We believe that brain aging is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's. And so what my previous research out of MIT showed is that if you're 5 years younger and you're brain aging, you're 6 times less likely to have Alzheimer's in the future, even if you have genetic risk factors. So I have a family history of Alzheimer's. My grandmother had Alzheimer's when I was a kid. I also have a genetic risk factor myself that puts me at 2 to 3 times the risk. I have a copy of the ApoE4 allele. It's quite common genetic risk factor. About 20% of people have it. And what our test does is tells me that if I can be 5 years younger in my brain aging, I can mitigate that genetic risk entirely. So right now, my brain is 7 years younger. So even though I'm genetically high risk, I am on track to avoid Alzheimer's, at least until I'm 85. If I want to live longer than that, I might have to drop my brain age even further. A healthy brain has not lost a lot of neurons. So as you get older, you lose neurons in certain areas of the brain. Your neurons also become more scraggly. So if you think of neurons like a tree that has lots of branches and lots of leaves and is really bushy, as you get older, the tree becomes less bushy. So the branches become more sparse, you have less leaves. And so, the goal with neurons is to keep them looking like a young, healthy tree for as long as possible. So I think one of the most interesting things to me was a lot of my research is in human postmortem brain. So people die and they or their families donate their brains to science, and we get the brains and we can look at levels of genes, so RNA levels of genes. So we did this in a lot of people's brains, over 1,000. And what we saw is that there were about 10% of your genes change in their RNA levels with age. So it's this huge effect. And those genes that do change tend to be related to diseases. So if you take those, which genes are changing, which genes are not changing, the ones that are changing are related to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and depression, but they're not related to diseases that aren't in the brain. So they're less related to breast cancer or autoimmune diseases or things to do with the gut. And the direction in which those genes that are related to diseases change is 100% in the direction that would cause disease. So we know from animal studies, if you knock the gene down in mice or give the mice more of the gene, that the direction which it's changing is predicted to cause disease. And so I think fundamentally what this means is that this is the mechanism by which aging is putting us at risk for specific diseases in the brain, known as the 9 pillars of brain aging. So it's a lot. There's 9. The top 3 are diet, exercise, and sleep. And so diet is a Mediterranean diet. Sleep is 7 to 9 hours. And exercise, we recommend an hour of exercise a day. Cardio is the best because it releases something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like plant food for your neurons. So when you exercise, you release this factor into your brain and it makes your neurons sprout and grow and be healthy like trees. And so High intensity cardio is the best way to do that, although all forms of exercise are good. So those are the top three, but other important ones are reducing stress, taking care of your general health, community. So, loneliness is very bad for brain aging. Your general health, your mental health, and avoiding environmental toxins. So there's been a lot of research that's come out, especially recently, on microplastics and pesticides, and we know that filtering your water is really important to try to remove some of those things. People will start off by playing the cognitive games. So right now, reaction time is free on our website, so everyone can play that one for free. And then based on those games, they'll get some personalized recommendations. So we recommend certain things based on whether you do well or on this game or that game, or less well on this game or that game. Then we send you for a brain MRI. So you go somewhere and you're nearby your house, and takes about 30 minutes to complete. And then we get those results, and then we give you this really cool 3D dashboard that shows you all the different parts of your brain from the MRI and the volumes of those parts of your brain. And then we send in the mail a kit to do the blood biomarkers and the genetics. So the blood biomarkers is collection. So it sticks to the outside of your shoulder here. You press it in and it collects about 1 ml of blood. And then for the genetics piece, it's a saliva kit. So you spit into a tube, and both of those you mail back. And then in about 6 weeks, you have your results from how genetically you're at risk for certain neuro disorders. And also, we're testing longevity genes now. So we'll also tell you your Klotho genotype and FOXO and some of the other ones that are related to longer lifespan. And then we give you a set of recommendations based on all of those parts. So each part of the testing gives you a new set of recommendations. So the brain MRI, maybe you have lower hippocampal volume, then we'll give you specific recommendations to increase the size of your hippocampus. That's the Alzheimer's area. Other people have different parts of their brain that might be lower volume, and so we give different recommendations for those. Same with the genetics. Some of your genes tell us something about which medications might be right for you, or which supplements, or what type of exercise. And so when we do the genetic testing, it also results in more recommendations for people. So there's actually a lot of evidence for omega-3s. So we know that one is good. It's better to get that from food if you can, because it's more bioavailable. So if you're a vegetarian, you can get it from walnuts or flax seeds. If you're a meat eater, you can get it from fatty fishes. So that's one that has good evidence. Lion's mane is more like emerging evidence. So I wrote a Substack on that recently. There's good data in mice, but the data in humans is just scant. So there's only a little bit of data. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. We just don't know. So there needs to be larger scale studies done with that one. But lion's mane is delicious, and we know it's not harmful for you. So you might as well, cook with it if you like mushrooms. So that one that has good evidence. Coffee and tea also have really good evidence. So there's compounds that's not from the caffeine, it's from the compounds in tea leaves and also in coffee beans, antioxidants and polyphenols. So those have really good evidence for them. There's some other ones that have less and less evidence as you go down the line. So we are making recommendations and then giving them a evidence quality rating. So if you got a lion's mane recommendation from us, we would tell you emerging evidence, here's what we know. And so for each one of them, that's what we're doing. And then you can make your own decision about whether you want to try it out or not. If I had unlimited funding, I would create new therapeutics that are personalized to people's biomarkers. So that's really the goal of the company, but I think we would move much faster on that. So some of the biomarkers that we're testing in the blood are also drug targets. So they're, statins for the brain. So that's what we need are drugs that can come in and, help people reverse those changes before it ends up causing damage and before they've lost a lot of neurons, when it's really hard to reverse changes once that's happened. So I think I would do 10 drugs, all in clinical trials, billions of dollars, because, there's so many drugs that haven't been tested, right? And it's just because of the expense related to doing all those clinical trials. So staying mentally active is one of the 9 pillars. And we know that doing things that are challenging for your brain, so learn something new or do a really hard game that you haven't been able to beat yet, or work on a project that requires creativity, or mathematics, anything that's mentally hard for you is good for your brain. And so we recommend people doing that at least a couple of hours a day, something that's challenging for them. In terms of cognitive training, we know that most cognitive training, the evidence is kind of mixed in terms of, whether doing brain games is really going to help you out that much, except for speed of processing training. So reaction time has really good evidence. So that is, if you're going to do one training, we would suggest reaction time. So there was a really well done study that followed people for 10 years. It was a randomized control trial, which means it had a placebo group. What it showed is that people that did 10 hours of reaction time training were 30% less likely to have dementia 10 years later. And 30% is a huge number. That's better than any of the drugs we have. Those 10 hours were lasted for 10 years. So really, if you put in, the time now, you can have those results still be working for you 10 years later. So I would like to sing that from the rooftops and, make a public service announcement and tell everybody to really work on their reaction time. And you can do that by playing our reaction time game online. You can do that by playing other fast-paced games. Games that require you to, move very quickly, like, I don't know, Wii tennis or ping pong or something like this. So those are the ways to improve your reaction time, and we really recommend that. Oh, I had my NeuroAge tested about a year and a half ago. I'm due for my next test. So in the last year and a half, I started a statin. So I dropped my cholesterol. So I have an apoE4 which makes my cholesterol higher. So now my cholesterol is in the normal range. I exercise 5 days a week, at least. And I really like hot yoga because it checks a lot of boxes at once. So it's hot, so you sweat, and that functions like sauna. There's also, if you do it vigorously, like the ones that I do, it's also cardiovascular and resistance training, and then there's even a little meditation at the end. So all of that is super good for you. All of those things. I've also been working on my sleep. So I'm 44 years old chronologically. And so I'm in perimenopause, and I started hormone replacement therapy. And that has dramatically improved my sleep. So that's another thing that I do. I take a multivitamin. And yeah, that's about it. And I track my lifestyle with the NeuroAge lifestyle quiz. So if you go to quiz.neuroagetx.com, you can see how you're doing on each of the 9 pillars, and I track those. So I think people don't understand that it is reversible, and a lot of these diseases are partially preventable. So Alzheimer's is 60% genetic, 40% lifestyles. There's this huge piece, that 40%. That's for most types of Alzheimer's. There's some rare types that are more genetic than that, but almost everyone has the type that's 40% due to lifestyle. And so people can start now. And where I see us in 10 years is all the NeuroAge customers being 5 years younger or more in their brain aging, and really, being a whole generation or cohort of people that are going to have much less Alzheimer's in the future and retain their independence. and be able to live at home and have good quality of life in the last decades that they're alive.